Hey friends, how you doing? Eric Eulis here. All right, today I've got a very important update with respect to the DB Cooper case. And first of all, I want to say that the investigation continues. I mean, there's a lot of work taking place behind the scenes right now trying to identify DB Cooper, trying to dig into the type particle evidence and frankly the other evidence that's out there to see if we can come away with a name, see if we can come away with a picture, see if we can come away with a story and finally put a finger on this guy after 53 years. And I do believe, when all is said and done, that we have a very real probability, very real possibility, it's probably the way to characterize it, that this year, 2025, we'll figure out who this guy is or be very, very close to figuring out who this guy is. Now, is it going to be DNA level kind of evidence, proof, that type of thing? Probably not. It's not impossible, but it seems unlikely at this juncture that that's the kind of evidence, that's the kind of proof that we'd be able to put forward. But nonetheless, there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here. So I do want to say that I'm particularly excited about one person of interest that I've been digging into very heavily over the last few weeks that I have come upon. And he's probably the individual that checks the boxes better than any person I've ever seen. Now, I'm going to be vague as far as this person's identification is concerned. I'm not going to provide a name. I'm not going to provide a picture, or at least a full picture of the individual. But I'll give some details to give you an idea of why I'm particularly excited about this person. First of all, there is an Oak Ridge National Laboratory connection. This person can explain all of the type particles as far as I understand them. So that's a very important thing in my mind. Again, my investigation from the very beginning has always been primarily science driven. You know, leveraging or leaning into the evidence that we have to see what it tells us, to see what we can glean for that if it helps us identify DB Cooper. So specifically when we're talking about the type particles, things of that nature, in my mind, somebody has to check those boxes. Somebody has to be able to explain the and the type particles. This person does that. Also, I will say that the age of this individual during the time of the skyjacking was between 48 and 50 years of age. I do know the individual's exact age and birth date, but between 48 and 50, so that checks the box there. The individual was a white person. That's the first thing we want to get out of the way. And according to the registrar's information on this person, military registrar's information on this person, his skin tone is checked off as dark. So he's got a dark complexion for a white guy. And I've seen pictures, and yeah, he's got that darker olive tone complexion, however you want to describe it there, which, you know, may be an important factor as well, because a handful of the witnesses described him as being swarthy, olive complexion, perhaps Native American looking or Latin looking, that type of thing. So this individual does check that box there. He was 6 feet tall, which is very important in my mind. As I've said many times before, I think DB Cooper was likely, very, very likely, somebody 6 foot, 6'1", something around that height, which was particularly tall for somebody of that age, because anybody who would have been around 50 years of age in 1971 means that they were born in the early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And only 10% of American men were either 6 feet or 6'1". So that in and of itself is a pretty important metric to consider. Now, if somebody came along that, you know, was 5'11" or something like that, sure, I don't think you can discount them. If somebody came along that was 6'2", I don't think you can discount them. But I think 6 foot, 6'1" is a sweet spot. My person of interest here, 6 feet tall. They have brown eyes, and they also have black hair. So again, when you're looking at sort of the physical description of DB Cooper, according to the witnesses, this person is spot on as far as all of this is concerned. Now, when you see pictures of the individual, which I'm not going to post, pictures of the individuals that I've seen, he has the appropriate kind of high forehead sort of look, you know, with the hair, the Bing Crosby-ish kind of thing. He's got that kind of vibe going on there. So that checks the box as well. I think that's important because some people, let's be honest, you look at the photograph and you're like, no, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't look anything like the sketch. And I think Walter Reck is a good example of that, you know, doesn't look anything like the sketch. Now you can take a look at a Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., who was not D.B. Cooper, or I should say Richard Floyd McCoy, the senior, not junior, but Richard Floyd McCoy. And obviously he wasn't D.B. Cooper, but I mean, I think most of us can agree that there's certainly a resemblance to the sketch. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking at as far as that's concerned there. The other thing here relates to the one very prominent feature that was described by the witnesses as well, which is sort of that pouty lip, that pouty lower lip, a little more prominent. And the FBI sketch artist, in an interview that he did, actually said that was one of that was the one thing that the witnesses brought out, that he had sort of a prominent pouty lower lip. I'm going to put up an image of the guy, a picture of the guy right here, to give you an idea of what his lip looked like. And there you go. This is obviously not the best image. It's a very cropped image here, but that's his lower lip there, and he clearly has that pouty, as I would describe it, pouty or more prominent lower lip kind of area. I've seen several pictures of him, and that's very obvious. So I think that he checks the box importantly as far as that is concerned as well. So I'll say that I'm digging into this guy, trying to see what else I can learn about him. And obviously there's a fair amount I know about him already, but I'm just not going to discuss it publicly. And like I said, I'm not going forward with a name or anything of that point, or anything of that nature at this point. But I consider this person very, very interesting, very compelling. And this is leveraging the most up-to-date scientific information that we have on the case, particularly as it pertains to the tie and the tie particles. Whether we're talking the titanium, the powdered metals, the uranium, the thorium, titanium, antimony, all of that stuff has to be explained. Even the clay, the bentonite clay that appears to be all over the tie as well. So again, it's exciting because here's an individual who can explain all of that. I'll say that this person is a well-educated individual, and I think D.B. Cooper was a well-educated individual. So I've said many times before that I think when we ultimately identify D.B. Cooper, and I'm being optimistic here as far as that goes, I think he's one of those characters that a lot of people would say, no way in hell, I can't believe that, Fred was D.B. Cooper, for example, that kind of thing. I think that's the kind of individual we're looking for. We're not looking for a career criminal or, your everyday common thug or anything of that nature. We're dealing with a different breed of cat here. It's worth noting, it's worth considering, it's worth factoring in that this is the one guy who got away. It's the only unsolved skyjacking in American history after 53 years. Still a mystery, still a terrific mystery. And that's for a reason. And it's not just because the guy got lucky. It's because the guy was bright. The guy was smart. He was very careful about how he managed things, not only during the skyjacking, but obviously after the skyjacking, after the fact. And that's worth considering because I do believe that tells us something about the man. So again, I'm looking for somebody who's an educated individual. So that's what I've got to report today. It's been quiet on the D.B. Cooper front, at least publicly speaking, for a while here. But I do want to say that there is an awful lot of exciting stuff going on behind the scenes here. I do believe that we're getting very close. This may be the guy. I don't know. This may be the guy. I'm pretty excited about it. Obviously very, very interested. Not many people pique my curiosity or pique my interest, but this guy does. So there we go, folks. That's all I've got for you today. I'll keep you up to date. I'll get that out. Cheers.